Big moves ahead in the big city with a massive new project announced. There's also a price tag attached for taxpayers. And there's debate about the price for moving a Confederate monument from city property. Jacksonville City Council's vice president is with us. Casey DeSantis, Florida's first lady, is fighting cancer. Donna Deegan shares her heart about her former co-worker. And the unemployment issues hit Florida hard. Well, now, so are the scams. A security expert is with us on This Week in Jacksonville. So glad you're with us today. Lots to discuss this morning concerning the city of Jacksonville. So we are joined remotely by City Council Vice President Terrence Freeman. Mr. Freeman, let's start with this $400 million project that got an easy yes vote Tuesday in City Council. It's the public-private partnership to develop at the old shipyards. $100 million plus from the city, but $300 million from Iguana Investments, a company owned by Jaguars owner Shad Khan. What are your hopes for this project, and why did it deserve the city financial backing?
Well, one, I could tell you, thanks for having me, Kent, and how exciting this is. One, the project you're referring to is one that I'm proud to say that was unanimously supported by my colleagues on the council. And I believe it's because we understand that the shipyards is going to be a catalyst for downtown. When we look at right now, we're at about 7,000 households downtown. We have a goal of 10,000, and this is just yet another step in the right direction. But even more so, it's about jobs and giving every citizen in this community an opportunity for jobs, and specifically in areas that I was most concerned with when we think about our small emerging businesses. And I was a strong proponent during the local option gas tax of running these conversations in parallel. We can have this needed growth in downtown areas, but we also can have the conversation of how can we bring those who haven't always been a part of the process into the process so that we all can flourish.
Yeah, Vice President Freeman, we're going to show some video of what's going on already. There's some work going on right now when it concerns downtown and maybe that area, but we know as this project gets underway, that's when the investment from the city kicks in. And Mayor Curry even this week was talking about it, saying, hey, I'm excited because this signals to the rest of the state, the rest of the region, the rest of the country even, that Jacksonville is growing and is ready for new business. Is that how you feel about it?
Absolutely. We are open for business. But Ken, as a father of 4 daughters, and I am that person and that parent that truly desires for my daughters to choose Jacksonville as their home where they raise their families, work, live, and play. And in order for them to choose Jacksonville, it's going to have to offer those types of amenities that are going to be of interest to them. And I think this is yet another step in that direction that's going to make this great city the great city that I know it can be for them as well.
Let's move on to another topic here. Vice President Freeman, distribution of city and federal money and grants. It's become an issue over just the past couple of weeks, really. You run a nonprofit called Read USA, Inc., which receives some money in this, but you also sounded the horn and said, hey, this should be a competitive process, which it apparently was not. Critics are calling this unfair and biased. What is council doing about it? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, sometimes good ideas with good intentions just don't pan out how you hope. And if there are people in our community that feel like they haven't had a seat at the table, we as a council, we have to do better. It's true, however, that every organization that's going to receive money, they were vetted by our administration. And the administration, they're going to hold them accountable for each and every one of the taxpayer dollars that are going towards those organizations. But I do stand in support of the smaller nonprofits who do big work with limited resources. But however, in this case, it created controversy, not expected by these nonprofits, not fair to them. As a council, we must own that. And albeit that it was a good intention, we have to take on the moral responsibilities of saying we have to do better. And we will do better to set that standard moving forward.
So this week, I've got a list of basically all the $4.6 million in COVID-19 relief money that went out. And it looked like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like for the 19 council members, you had a sliver of that you could designate for specific nonprofits. Is that correct?
Yes, that is accurate, Ken. That there was certain portions of dollars that were, we as council members were afforded to reach out to organizations that we might have been aware of through our daily service to the community, who may not have the back office support to go through the grant process and to assist them and walk them through it. But again, like I said, this created controversy. It left some folks with a feeling that they didn't have a seat at the table, and that's not right. We want everyone to be a part of the process. And as we move forward, no matter how good the intentions are, we're going to do better to make sure that there's accountability on all ends, so that these organizations, both familiar with City and those who are not familiar with City, are brought to the table, and there is a vetting process that makes sure that these dollars are accounted for.
So help me understand, you personally, you're speaking as CEO of one of the nonprofits here and the council vice president. That meeting 2 weeks ago, $500,000 went to the nonprofit run by council member Reggie Gaffney. Your organization and the ones led by council members Jacoby Pittman and Kevin Carrico each approved for $100,000. I know all four of you council members recused yourself from the vote on that, but is that enough to make it fair?
So there's a process to it that was followed, and it's the process in which bills, particularly in the ones that you mentioned, will go through that council process. It'll be introduced, it'll be brought before the city, it'll go through each of our committees, and then brought forward. But listen, I understand the cast of doubt that has come throughout this process, and I am one that is on the council that is going to look forward to bringing forward solutions that will hopefully limit this level of lack of trust and this perspective of a lack of transparency. I believe, as I said earlier, these organizations, small, are doing great work on limited resources. And if there are ways that we can help introduce them to this process, even better. And so when you speak of the organizations that you mentioned earlier, these are credible organizations that have just done an amazing work, and their bodies of work and portfolios, they speak for themselves.
So let me shift to one final topic in our final minute that we've got together. The issue of any remaining Confederate monuments, that's been raised recently. Mayor Curry's office saying about $1.3 million can deal with removing and preserving that statue that you're seeing here in Springfield Park. It's the monument to the women of the Confederacy. Covered right now, but activist groups really want it to go away. Vice President Freeman, what do you see on this? How do you want to handle this?
Yeah, definitely another touchy subject, and I can respect the passion on all sides of the discussion. From my perspective, all of the statues have been taken down but one. But at some point, we have got to shift the narrative, and we have to start focusing on not only what we can tear down, but be more proactive in telling the history, the highs and the lows of our history, which we know brings some pain and brings some agony and brings some provocative thought. But at this point, $1.2 million of taxpayer dollars on this project, I think that there are other things that we need to focus on as a city, and it's not something that I simply think I will support at this time.
Yeah. Lots going on in the city. I appreciate the time. Vice President of City Council, Terrence Freeman, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken. Have a great day.
All right, so we learned a little more about Florida's first family this week, and we learned a little bit more about the fight against breast cancer going on. Next on This Week in Jacksonville, the governor's first comments and Donna Deegan's view.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
For the first time this week, Governor Ron DeSantis is speaking publicly about his wife's breast cancer diagnosis. The governor says it hasn't been easy, but First Lady Casey DeSantis, as he put it, is a very, very strong woman. Casey DeSantis is 41 years old. She's the mother of the couple's 3 children. In 2003, she interned here at News4Jax before becoming a reporter and an anchor. Governor DeSantis says despite the diagnosis disrupting their lives, he has faith that his wife will make it through.
We come to the point of, okay, this is what I'm going to have to deal with. And, we've been in and out of getting medical already, and she's like the healthiest person in the whole hospital. And so I think her view is better me than somebody who may not be able to deal with it better me than, God forbid, other people that are close to her. And so that's just kind of her spirit. I have faith. I got faith in the big guy upstairs, and I've got faith in her. And I know that, this is a bad break, but she's got an awful lot to live for the rest of her life.
I reached out to Donna Deegan, founder of the Donna Foundation and the 26.2 with Donna. She is also the CEO, which she says stands for Chief Eternal Optimist. She's a passionate, longtime advocate against breast cancer who knows the disease affects an entire family, not just a single patient.
I always feel so sorry for the caregivers because it is a helpless time for them. I think for those of us who are in the middle of it, we're sort of drinking from a fire hose, trying to take it all in. But I think for the caregivers, there's a sincere sense of helplessness of how can I be most helpful? What can I do to be there? How do I not be, cloying and at the same time be helpful? It's tough. And I know that Tim and I have had many conversations about he wanted to appear strong and to be there. And at the same time, I think he was just as terrified. And I'm sure that's the same thing for the governor. It's a difficult thing for those that are on the other side of it. And of course, like Casey, I had very small children when I was first diagnosed. And that's another thing that is just certainly part of the equation in your mind. No matter what the prognosis is, immediately your mind goes to your children and will you be there for them? And what will they have to go through? And what will you share with them? And what should you not share with them? And there are many things surrounding the whole family dynamic when especially when a young woman like Casey is diagnosed. I was only 38 when I was first diagnosed. And so I know what that's like. It's unusual to be diagnosed that early. It's usually a diagnosis that comes in late 50s or early 60s. So it comes with a whole new set of complications.
It's an additional layer when you start thinking about those young children, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because as a mother, that's your heart, that's your soul. And all you can think about is, I don't want to leave my babies and I want to make sure they're taken care of. And what you find is that they'll let you know what they need. I was so worried about what or if I would share, but they let you know. And I think the big thing is that you just want to be present for them. And she will be, there's no question about that. But it is a very tough thing when you have little children.
Your first reaction, I guess, when you heard that Casey DeSantis, who so many of us here in Jacksonville and in media know, has breast cancer. First reaction? Immediately,
my heart just went out to her. It is a painful and fearful thing for anyone to hear those words, you have cancer. And I know as somebody who has spent a lot of time in the public eye, that can be especially traumatizing if you know that you're there and all eyes are on you. It can be a wonderful thing to have so many people that are rooting for you. But at the same time, I think it adds to that initial jolt when you first hear the news of, oh my goodness, I have to share this with everybody. Or you don't have to, but you do pretty much.
You told me that a diagnosis of breast cancer comes and it is life altering. In what ways can it be positive? And I think in part, just the timing of this announcement when it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Well, I can only go from my own experience, and I'm sure every woman would tell you from her own perspective. When I was first diagnosed, I remember saying to my doctor, I don't want to be the poster child for this disease. 2 diagnoses later, after 3 diagnoses with breast cancer, that's a foregone conclusion, right? But for me, what I found was once I opened myself up to other people and the things they wanted to share with me and how I could be helpful to them, not only did sort of turning outward to hear them and learn what they were going through help me, but it helped me not focus on myself so much. And I think that can be a very big positive when you're going through this. She's certainly in a position to be that big help for others. And you can already see she's turning this that way. It's an opportunity to really relate to people with whom before you didn't have any particular relationship with beyond just knowing that people go through cancer. Once you become a cancer survivor, you really have a bond with other people that have gone through that disease. And the fear, the hopes, all those things that come into your mind. But I think it can be positive in so many ways. You can find a courage and a strength that you never knew that you had until you were faced with having to have it. And when I say that, I don't mean that you have to brace. I'm just, as if you heard me talk about this many times before, I think you can really come to the fact of, hey, you know what? Life is sweet, it is short, and we have to make the most of every moment. And let's jump out of bed every day and go, hey, we're grateful, let's go. And I think it's a good opportunity to refocus on that.
So these last many years, you've made it a priority to try and do something good out of your experience. Tell us The latest with the foundation, everybody hears about this race every year that has your name on it. They just say the Donna. And are we making progress in terms of trying to fight cancer, specifically breast cancer?
Oh, we're absolutely making progress. I can tell you that for certain. There are all sorts of new classes of drugs that are coming out. In many ways, I know it's hard to fathom that because you still see people with the bald heads and when women have to go through some treatments that just seem like they're just hideous. But we're making great progress in terms of survival rates and new medicines. And so there are many things coming down the pipeline. And that's something that's been so exciting about having the Donna Foundation all these years. Not only have we been able to assist women and men, because men also get breast cancer. About 1% of breast cancers do appear in men. We've been able to help them with critical needs while they're going through their treatment, but we've been able to fund some very specific types of breast cancer research that are sort of hard to fund because they're sort of out there, but they can lead to quick results. And so I think that's been exciting to watch. So we're seeing a lot of wonderful activity, but so far to date, we've helped, almost 16,000 families through the Donna Foundation. So, and that's because people come out and run with us every year. So it's a great experience. And look, I wouldn't take any of that back. It has been a painful thing at times to go through, but when you see the results of some of that, you think, okay, you have this one and only life to make an impact. And if you have the opportunity to do that, even if it requires going through some difficulty to get there, look what's come of that. So I think sometimes our greatest triumphs can come out of our greatest tragedies. And I'm sure that Casey will find that to be the case too.
Donna Deegan there, noting that she told me, hey, I mentioned it a million times, but she said cancer does not see a political party or political identity. She says the most important thing is that DeSantis is a mom, a woman going through something difficult, and that everyone should be there to support her. In addition to working here at Channel 4, Casey DeSantis also worked at the same TV station with Deegan a few years ago. All right, stay with us. Just ahead, fraud keeping citizens in Florida from receiving unemployment benefits. We're hearing from an expert about the elaborate schemes next on This Week in Jacksonville.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville on Channel 4.
There were reports recently that some people in Florida were blocked from unemployment benefits. It seems that their identities were compromised, even though they had verified accounts with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Joining us now, Haywood Talcove, CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions Government Group. Mr. Talcove, so what's the scam and how do the bad guys do this?
Yeah, so we have been dealing with these transnational criminal groups that have been entering the unemployment insurance systems across the country now for the past 18 months. And they've stolen over $250 billion. The latest scam is absolutely brutal. And what they're doing is they're setting up fake job listings on job listing sites, having people apply for those positions. The individuals then provide the criminals inadvertently via social engineering with their name, their date of birth, a copy of the license, a copy of their passport, a copy of their Social Security Administration, all the data that's needed to access the state of Florida and the other 49 state systems. To date, this fraud started out about 4 months ago with 12,000 fake job listings. It's now over 38,000 and over 1.3 million individuals have provided their information to these criminal groups.
Yeah, people trying to take a solid step forward to get re-employed here. When it comes specifically to Florida, didn't the state of Florida increase security in the past year after having some problems with the unemployment system?
Yeah, so Florida, like every other state, right, is actually doing a really good job. The problem that we're dealing with are transnational criminal groups. Some of them are even state sponsored. And every time you put up a defense, what they're doing is they're figuring out a way to get past it. And right now, this is the way. Now, there's some things that can get done to protect people.
Yeah, what is that advice? How do I protect myself from this kind of a ripoff, a scam?
Right. What I would do if I was a consumer, because many people, in fact, I read a statistic, 70% of individuals these days find their jobs on the internet. So the first thing I would do is, if you get back a note from a company, from one of the job boards that says, congratulations, we'd like to interview you, go and Google the company and make sure it's real. The second thing that I would do is, if I got an email from that individual, I would want to make sure that the email matches the domain of the company. I'd be highly suspect if it wasn't from that domain. If it was a Yahoo email or a Gmail or a Yacht Mail or a Proton Mail, I'd be very skeptical. And the third thing I would do is I would call the central number of the company and ask to get transferred to that person. I would never give out and give copies of your personal information without doing those three things.
Yeah, it's as you're pointing out, it's a dangerous time because there's certainly some desperation for people who are saying, I got to get back in the workforce. And as you pointed out, there's a way to try and stay ahead of that and take some proper precautions.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Haywood Talco, CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions Government Group, appreciate the insights here, and a word of warning to our viewers on how to stay out of trouble like this, because this is going to steal millions of dollars, I'm sure. Thanks so much for your time.
Great. Have a great day, sir. Thank you.
So, as you know, This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. We are constantly working to get the hot topics and politics of the region covered here, and so we're working on interviews for you coming up, including, I've been telling you the last few weeks, we're working on getting the Speaker of the House, Chris Sprowls, in with us. That's on the agenda sometime soon as well. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and the CW17, and always find us online at news4jax.com.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.